Hi everyone, my name is Kevin Olds. This is my module 16 for EDL 854. This is the case study, Missing Booster Club Funds. So the problem, what do we know? Well, we know a little bit about the school. It's Warren Middle. It is a rural school. We have Mr. Stevens, who's a very well-respected principal in the building. Miss Alice Bowman is a parent and volunteer. And here is the problem. There are inconsistencies regarding money that was collected from a game. Mr. Stevens, this is a super small school. Mr. Stevens doesn't have any APs or anything to help him with every aspect of running the school. So after school, some parents volunteer, and some of them take money for the games, and one of those volunteers is Alice Bowman. And we have an issue with money she collected after a game. And she's the case study never said that she was suspected of stealing, but it's kind of implied that she potentially stole the money. And that is because Ms. Bowman went to Mr. Stevens and asked for PTA funds for her child to go on a trip. And this trip would have been only Miss Bowman and the student. So the trip would have been just for one student to go somewhere, and she wanted PTA funds for that. And she asked for the money. The principal, Mr. Stevens, turned her down, said he didn't think that it was ethical to give PTA funds to one student, which isn't ethical at all, because as we've learned in class, money that is collected should be used for the greater good of the students, and it also should be used for what it was collected for. So if money was collected for one student to go to a trip, then that's fine, but that's not the method or the reason that the money was collected, so there's a problem there. So she asked for the money, and then immediately after, there are some inconsistencies with the money bag. The principal couldn't find money that should be present. Somebody paid with a $50 bill, and Miss Bowman wrote in the log that there were some ripped or torn tickets that needed to be thrown away, which is a little suspicious. What do we need to know? These torn tickets that she wrote down, I think there was 10 of them, 10 torn tickets. Sure, if they're torn, that's great. Where are they? They should have been kept, and it should have been documented as proof. Here are the tickets. They're torn. We couldn't use them or sell them, and so here they are. The problem is she's writing down that the tickets are torn, and then no mention was made of where the torn tickets are at. Also, what bills are in the bag. We do know that the one community member who came in paid with a $50 bill. Is the 50 in there? Also, I would like to know if Ms. Bowman made change with that $50 bill, and maybe that's why the 50 isn't in there. Maybe she changed it out. Maybe somebody paid with 100 and she gave them back a 50. We would need to know. I would want to know where the if she made change with the 50. Also, was anyone working with Ms. Bowman? We know that best practice in instances like this is that when money is received or collected, that there are multiple people there to vouch if anything is wrong. So was anybody working with her? And can they substantiate the claim of the torn tickets or not? If there were cameras, we could check the cameras and see if there was any evidence of her taking the money out or anything. So I'd want to check for that. Also, the case study was written directly after the game when the principal was counting the money with a security guard. Is she still at the game? If she's still there, then someone can go and ask her, like, hey, where's this $50 bill? Where are these torn tickets? And potentially, if she had stolen that money, she could maybe have it on her. And that could be used as evidence that she was the one, that it wasn't just a mistake, that it was actual theft. Plan of action. If she's suspected of stealing it, you need to alert the authorities. Police need to be called, and they should help deal with an issue of theft. It shouldn't be dealt with in-house. The superintendent should be alerted. I would want to know if there's an action plan in place for dealing with theft in this manner. If there's already an action plan in place, then it should be followed. If there's not an action plan in place, then one should be created and documented for if something like this happens again. Also, if there's any other, I know it said that there were no assistant principals, but if there's any other authority figures in the building, they need to know as well. Is there a dean of students that needs to be involved, or any other kind of authority figure? I think the second step should be meetings should be held. You need to meet with Ms. Bowman, ask her about the tickets, ask her about the cash, see what's going on. I think other volunteers should also be met with. Did they see anything? Did they suspect anything? See if there's any evidence that could be collected that way. Also, meetings with the authorities. You need to meet with the police, lay out specifically what you think happened, what potentially happened, and give them all the facts and let them sort it out. Also, that meeting with the superintendent needs to happen to see if there's an action plan. Next step would be to solve the crime. You do this by letting the police solve the crime, I think. You give them all the police the evidence and let them sort it out, so you need to have a dialogue with the police. Also, you need to ask any witnesses that were potentially around. If this is a basketball game, there's probably tons of people around, and I would want to speak with them to see if they saw or suspected anything. And I think you would also need to speak with Ms. Bowman about potential proof. Does she have the tickets? Does she have the torn tickets? Is there any way she can prove that it was not her stealing? And finally, the last step, the fourth step, would be to support the authorities, support the police in their investigation, because if it is theft, you would need to let them handle it. So if she's suspected and you double check the money and you kind of poke around and ask around and she's still suspected, you just let the police do what they do. Continue checking in with the police, keep a dialogue open on what they're doing, and also hand over to the police all of the evidence that you have, so they can do their job and see if she did in fact steal the money. How does this resolution promote success? It ensures honesty and trust between the community and the school. That's a very important relationship. Everybody needs to be honest with each other and trust everyone 100% in a scenario like this. And between the community, I think that this action plan promotes that. I also think it creates or reinforces procedures. If there's already a procedure in place for dealing with theft, then it's followed and it's reinforced. Or if there's not, then you create one, you document it, and then if anything like this ever happens again, you can use that procedure. It also creates a better environment with the community. I was thinking during this case study and when formulating the action plan, I was thinking, should the principal have stepped in more? Should the principal have been more present when money is being collected? Maybe that should be the principal's job. Maybe the principal collects the money instead of having a volunteer do it, and the volunteers, crowd control or do other things. So should the principal have done more? I was also thinking the volunteers should be trained on fund usage. They should be trained on all the steps when collecting money and using school funds. And I'm also thinking that as a building level leader, you should always plan for the worst. There should be a plan in place for when things should happen. I was frustrated. Stealing money that's meant for kids and learning is really frustrating. I was also angry that somebody might steal from the students. I think those kind of feelings go together and kind of intertwine a little bit. And I was disappointed that there was a trusting relationship involved between parents and the school, and it was potentially broken. I think my action plan values honesty. You're promoting honesty between parents and the community and the school. I was also valuing the community environment and that relationship between the community, parents, outside people, and the school. It's a really important relationship. And I was also valuing the integrity of procedures. Like I said, plan in place, you follow it. If not, you create one. In terms of unresolved issues or further questions, were there signs that something like this might happen? Is the way that the money collected is a little loose? Does it need tightening up? Has an event like this ever happened before? Has there been funds that were stolen? And if so, what happened? What were the consequences? And how did everything else fall in line after the event? And also how, as a leader, how can you prevent this from happening again? It's a very unfortunate situation. Don't want to have it be repeated. How can we prevent that?